There are three kinds of people whose presence in your life is not merely unfortunate, it is catastrophic. They do not shout, they do not warn, and by the time you recognize them, it may already be too late. They wear no uniform, bear no scars of battle, and yet they leave wreckage in their wake. They operate not with weapons, but with something far more dangerous: trust, influence, and fear. This is not a story about villains in dark alleys. This is a lesson in human nature, a psychological map of the dangerous terrain hidden behind familiar faces. The first among them is the manipulator. He is not violent. He is not forceful. He is elegant. That is what makes him dangerous. He enters not with threats, but with charm. His most effective tool is understanding, at least the illusion of it. You meet him and you feel seen. He nods in the right moments, agrees with your dreams, laughs at your jokes. He mirrors you with eerie precision, and it feels good. It feels like connection, but it isn't. It's strategy. This is the kind of man who never has to demand anything. You offer it freely, your trust, your time, your loyalty, because he made you believe it was your idea. He never pulls you by the arm. He guides you with invisible strings. The manipulator is often mistaken for a confidant, a business partner, a lover, or even a best friend. But in truth, he is none of these things. He is a reflection you fall in love with. And by the time you reach to touch it, you're reaching into a void. Imagine the colleague who always praises your ideas, but somehow when the project is successful, it's his name on the plaque. Or the friend who always offers advice, but you later discover every path led to their benefit, not yours. Or the romantic partner who showers you with affection so quickly that you're swept into a future you didn't plan. And then one day they vanish, leaving you with emptiness and questions that echo. Science has a term for this: psychological manipulation. It's not fiction, it's documented. Manipulators exploit cognitive biases, like our desire for reciprocity, our need to be liked, and our yearning for validation. They play upon our emotional blind spots. Researchers like Dr. George Simon have explored how covert aggression can be cloaked in charm. And what makes it insidious is that it feels natural. That's why we rarely notice until the damage is done. So here is your first truth. The most dangerous thief doesn't take your wallet. He takes your decisions. He rewrites your story and convinces you that you wrote it. And when the credits roll and you're left with nothing, he's already gone. Gone, but not without leaving a scar on your sense of self. In the next part, we'll go deeper. We'll strip away the illusion and expose the specific signs, the cracks in the mirror, that can help you see the manipulator before he claims more than your trust, before he takes your very identity. The manipulator thrives not in darkness, but in daylight. He moves among people who praise his charisma, admire his intuition, and often, unknowingly, defend him. And this is why recognizing him is so difficult. He doesn't wear a mask that scares you. He wears one that comforts you. He becomes everything you've ever wanted in a person: attentive, supportive, deeply understanding. But it's not real. It's an emotional mirage. And if you do not learn to recognize the signs, you will follow that mirage straight into the desert of regret. The first sign is intensity without foundation. A manipulator accelerates trust. In business, in friendship, in romance, he rushes the timeline. You meet, and immediately he's sharing secrets, revealing wounds, telling you how rare you are. It feels flattering. It feels meant to be. But genuine connection takes time. Real bonds grow slowly. When someone pushes too quickly into emotional intimacy, that's not romance, it's recruitment. The second sign is mirroring without depth. He seems to align with your values, your opinions, your dreams. But if you listen closely, his positions shift to match yours. He agrees not because he believes, but because he calculates. He says what you want to hear, and he listens not to understand, but to adapt. Press him with a challenge and he pivots. He has no core. His only consistency is agreement. The third sign is advisory control. The manipulator loves to help. He offers advice, often unsolicited. But over time, you'll notice that his advice consistently benefits him. It limits your independence. It creates dependency. He doesn't want you to be strong. He wants you to feel like you need him. It's not mentoring, it's manufacturing reliance. And by the time you realize you've stopped making decisions without his approval, you're already under his influence. The fourth sign is selective presence. He is there when you are winning. He praises your success, posts about it, uses it. But when you falter, he vanishes. Or worse, he turns your struggle into another lesson on how you couldn't have managed without him. Real allies lift you. Manipulators highlight your weakness to maintain control. These signs are not isolated events. They form a pattern, and patterns reveal truths. If you feel pulled too fast into closeness, constantly affirmed without real challenge, advised in ways that diminish you and abandoned in your weakness, stop. You are not in a relationship. You are in a manipulation. And the longer you stay, the more you will confuse reflection for reality. The manipulator doesn't steal your life all at once. He takes it piece by piece. Your confidence, your independence, your clarity. Until one day you don't recognize yourself. This is not drama. This is psychology. And if you have felt this erosion, this quiet confusion, this hollow intimacy, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are just waking up to the truth. In part 3, we will explore not only how to confront the manipulator, but how to confront the part of you that let him in. Because here is the hardest truth of all. He did not take what you did not first offer. And that means you must understand the hunger in you that made his charm irresistible. The manipulator's power does not begin with his words. It begins with your hunger. The need to be seen, to be valued, to be understood. This is not weakness. It is profoundly human. But when left unchecked, that hunger becomes the very door he walks through. He studies it, mirrors it, feeds it, until you mistake his attention for affection, his strategy for sincerity. And by the time you realize you've been consumed, you're already blaming yourself for the pain he caused. To truly disarm the manipulator, you must first ask yourself this: what need was I hoping he would fulfill? Was it the need for approval? For belonging? For safety? These needs aren't shameful. But when they go unmet for too long, they distort our perception. We see kindness where there is control. We hear truth where there is manipulation. We feel connection where there is only calculation. Neuroscientific studies on attachment theory show that early emotional neglect can wire the brain to crave validation at any cost. When someone finally offers it, even artificially, the brain responds with trust before logic can intervene. This isn't stupidity, it's survival wiring. The manipulator understands this better than most. He doesn't overpower you, he aligns with your longing. He weaponizes your unmet emotional needs. This is why the manipulator seems so irresistible. He appears right when you feel most unseen, most unloved, most uncertain. And he reflects back the version of yourself you wish to be: strong, chosen, worthy. But mirrors do not love you. They only show what you want to see. And when you lean in, there is nothing there to hold you. To break free, you must stop searching for someone to complete you. You must become intimate with your own emptiness and learn to fill it with truth, not illusion. You must ask, what do I believe I lack? And who benefits from that belief? The manipulator's grip weakens the moment you no longer look to him to tell you who you are. Confronting this in yourself takes courage. It means acknowledging that part of you chose him, not out of ignorance, but out of need. It means forgiving yourself, not for being fooled, but for being human. And it means building boundaries not just with others, but within yourself. When you recognize the pattern, when you no longer chase reflection, when you speak truth instead of seeking it in someone else's eyes, that is when the spell breaks. And once it does, the manipulator cannot hold you. Because he never controlled your mind. He simply rented the space your self-doubt left vacant. Evict him. Reclaim it. In part 4, we will examine how manipulators respond when exposed, how they twist confrontation into confusion, and how you can protect your clarity in the storm that follows truth. When a manipulator senses he's been seen, he does not retreat. He adapts. Exposure threatens his control, but it does not end it, not immediately. In fact, the most dangerous phase begins the moment you start to pull away. That's when he pivots, accelerates, doubles down. Because to him, losing control is a personal crisis, and he will do whatever it takes to regain it. The first response is often confusion. He may deny your observations, make you question your memory, your instincts, even your sanity. This tactic is known as gaslighting, a psychological strategy that manipulates your perception of reality. Suddenly, you begin to wonder, was I too harsh? Did I misread things? Maybe I'm the problem. And just like that, your clarity becomes fog. Then comes the performance. The charm returns, stronger than ever. He may apologize, reveal a new vulnerability, or even claim transformation. This isn't remorse, it's survival. He needs you to believe in the story again, and so he rewrites the script, casting himself as a changed man. He'll say the right things, maybe even cry, but if you look closely, the pattern remains. Because the manipulator does not change, he evolves. If charm fails, he turns to guilt. He'll remind you of everything he's done for you, all the times he was there, all the sacrifices he claims to have made. He'll suggest that your doubts are betrayals. He will twist the narrative until you feel like the villain for protecting yourself. And if guilt doesn't work, he might escalate to anger. Blame becomes a weapon. You'll be accused of being ungrateful, paranoid, disloyal. His goal is simple, to make you feel small again, uncertain again, controllable again. Understanding this cycle is essential to your freedom. The manipulator's greatest strength is not his strategy, it's your self-doubt. When you question your right to see clearly, he wins. But when you name the behavior, when you hold the boundary, when you refuse to be drawn into emotional case, the spell begins to break. You will feel the tremble of old habits, the temptation to believe him again. Resist it. Truth is not a feeling, it is a decision. Build your clarity like a fortress. Write down what you felt, what patterns repeated. Facts do not change under pressure. Keep them close. Remind yourself that love does not require confusion, connection does not require surrender, and kindness does not erase harm. The manipulator thrives on ambiguity. Give him none. Stand firm. In part 5, we'll turn inward again. Because once you've seen the manipulator for what he is, you must begin the work of healing what he left behind. The hollow spaces, the broken trust, the stolen voice. Recovery is not just escape, it is rebirth. And it begins with reclaiming the parts of yourself you were taught to question. Freedom from a manipulator is not just physical distance, it is psychological reclamation. You can walk away from him, block his number, change your routine, but if he still lives in your thoughts, your choices, your doubts, then the manipulation continues. Real escape begins when you reclaim the parts of yourself that were conditioned to serve someone else's agenda. The first wound you must heal is your voice. Manipulators thrive by making you second-guess what you know. They create internal conflict. You learn to distrust your instincts, delay your reactions, soften your truth. Even in small ways, you begin to filter everything through their perspective. Did he mean it that way? Maybe I'm overreacting. These thoughts are not signs of reflection. They are symptoms of conditioning. Reclaiming your voice means learning to validate your own experience. What you felt was real. What you noticed was accurate. The tension in your body, the confusion in your heart, the anxiety in your chest, those were not illusions. They were signals. And your ability to trust those signals again is the foundation of healing. Write it out. Say it aloud. Speak your version, even if your voice trembles. That trembling is strength returning. The second step is forgiving yourself, not for what you did, but for what you tolerated. That's the hardest part. We carry shame for being deceived, for staying too long, for giving too much. But understand this, you did what you knew how to do with the resources and awareness you had at the time. Now with new clarity, you can choose differently. And that is not weakness, it is growth. Research in trauma recovery emphasizes the importance of narrative ownership. Dr. Judith Herman, in her work on psychological trauma, explains that healing begins when the survivor takes back the story. You are not the failure. You are the one who woke up. You are not the puppet. You are the one who cut the strings. And the more you tell that truth, the less hold his memory has over your identity. The final stage is integration. You do not need to erase what happened. You must integrate it, see it, name it, and carry the lesson forward. You are not who you were before him, but that's not a tragedy. That's a transformation. The pain you endured can become the wisdom you wield, not as armor that keeps people out, but as discernment that lets only truth in. In part 6, we will explore the second archetype of danger, the betrayer. He is not the outsider, he is the insider. He doesn't need to seduce you into trust. He already has it. And that makes him far more devastating than the manipulator. While the manipulator convinces you to hand over your trust, the betrayer turns that trust into a weapon. There is a particular kind of devastation that does not come from outside your circle, but from the center of it. Betrayal is not about strangers. It is about the ones you let in, the ones who knew your fears, your dreams, your weaknesses, and chose to use them against you. While the manipulator charms his way past your defenses, the betrayer was already inside the gates, and that is why his wound cuts the deepest. The betrayer is not always malicious in appearance. He may present himself as a loyal friend, a devoted partner, a trusted colleague. He may be someone you laughed with, cried with, planned futures with, but betrayal is not defined by malice. It is defined by breach, a breach of sacred trust. And when it comes, it shatters not only your connection to the person, but your connection to your own ability to trust again. Ask yourself, who in your life has access to what could break you? Who do you share your vulnerabilities with, your passwords, your plans, your truths? That is the person who holds the power to betray. And betrayal is never spontaneous. It is prepared in silence. It begins with small omissions, half-truths, subtle withdrawals. By the time the knife is in your back, the betrayer has rehearsed the moment 100 times. There are signs, always. The first is secrecy, not the healthy kind we all need, but the deliberate kind, the kind that hides information that affects you. The second is distancing. Missed calls, vague replies, energy that once flowed now feels withheld. Third is the subtle testing of boundaries. A broken promise here, a missed commitment there. And fourth, perhaps the most chilling, is admiration that slowly turns to envy. They once celebrated your wins. Now their eyes dim when you shine. Betrayal is not just a loss. It is a desecration. It turns shared memories into lies. It rewrites your history with doubt. You look back at the laughter and wonder if it was real. You remember the promises and realize they were calculated. That psychological dissonance is what makes betrayal so devastating. It doesn't just steal your trust in them, it steals your trust in yourself. But here is where your power begins to return. You must separate their actions from your worth. When trust is tested, it often reflects a person's individual journey, not a shortcoming in others. These situations can arise when individuals are not yet ready for open communication or to fully uphold their commitments. And though the experience can be disheartening, it is not a setback. Instead, it can be a moment of new understanding. In part 7, we will explore the dynamics of trust in greater detail, the thought processes involved, the patterns that emerge, and most importantly, how to recognize the earliest signs to build stronger, more reliable connections. Because while you cannot control every outcome, you can develop your awareness to navigate relationships with greater clarity. A breakdown in trust is rarely sudden. It is often a gradual process beginning with the smallest inconsistencies, a statement that doesn't quite add up, an avoided conversation, or a subtle shift in communication. And if you are not trained to see it, you'll rationalize it, excuse it, even blame yourself. Because you want the relationship to be real. You want the trust to be mutual. But desire cannot erase reality. And reality always leaves a trail. The first trail marker is secrecy disguised as privacy. A healthy relationship respects personal space, but the betrayer goes beyond that. He hides his motives, clouds his intentions, offers vague answers when direct ones are due. He withholds without reason, and when you question him, he flips the concern back on you. Why don't you trust me? He asks, not to seek truth, but to avoid it. The second sign is emotional withdrawal masked as busyness. He is still around, but not truly present. He avoids the hard conversations. He makes excuses for distance. You feel the absence, but he assures you everything is fine. Over time, the warmth fades. You are left clinging to the echo of who he once was, rather than facing who he has become. Then comes the boundary testing, small betrayals dressed as jokes, a jab about your career in front of others, a promise broken and quickly brushed off. Each moment is a rehearsal. He is watching to see how much you'll tolerate. And with each excuse you accept, each silence you maintain, he becomes bolder. Your tolerance becomes permission. Perhaps the most insidious sign is envy cloaked in admiration. He compliments your achievements, but something in his tone is off. His praise feels performative, his support conditional. You sense his pride in you is mixed with resentment. He wants what you have, but not through effort, through access. And once admiration rots into jealousy, betrayal is not far behind. Asham. The final signal is the shift in allegiance. Suddenly he aligns with others who challenge you. He echoes their opinions, adopts their language, even laughs at their mockery of you. You are no longer his anchor. He's already transferring loyalty to another cause, another person, another future that doesn't include you. These signs are not paranoia. They are survival intelligence. Your body often notices betrayal before your mind does. The anxiety you feel around him, the confusion after conversations, the gut sense that something is off. Those are not irrational feelings. They are internal alarms. You must learn to listen. In Part 8, we will uncover the psychological consequences of betrayal, not just the hurt, but the long-term impact it has on trust, identity, and emotional resilience. Betrayal doesn't just change how you see others, it changes how you see yourself. And understanding this shift is the first step in reclaiming your inner stability. Betrayal is not merely an event, it is a psychological rupture. When someone you trusted turns against you, the break is not just relational, it is internal. You begin to question not only their loyalty, but your own judgment. How did I not see it coming? How could I have been so blind? These are not just rhetorical questions. They are the seeds of self-doubt. And if left unanswered, they grow into self-abandonment. The first and most immediate impact of betrayal is cognitive dissonance. Your brain struggles to reconcile two opposing truths. This person cared for me, and this person harmed me. Holding both feels impossible, and so the mind leans toward a dangerous compromise. Maybe it wasn't betrayal. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I caused it. This is how the betrayed becomes self-blaming, and self-blame, over time, erodes self-worth. Neuroscience tells us that betrayal activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. The anterior cingulate cortex, the region that processes both social rejection and bodily harm, lights up during moments of deep betrayal. This is not metaphor. It is measurable. Your heartbreak is real. And if ignored, it becomes stored not just in memory, but in the body, through anxiety, insomnia, and a constant state of hypervigilance. Another long-term effect is the collapse of trust, not just in others, but in yourself. You hesitate before making decisions. You second-guess your intuition. You question your ability to discern good from bad. This is the most tragic outcome of betrayal. It robs you of your inner compass, and without that compass, you drift, emotionally, mentally, relationally. Yet, within this pain lies a quiet opportunity, not a justification for the betrayal, but a call to deepen your self-relationship. What parts of you ignored the early signs? What needs were you fulfilling by staying silent, by explaining things away? Healing begins not with blame, but with radical self-inquiry. Not, how could they do this to me? But, what was I unwilling to see? Rebuilding trust starts with small steps. First, affirm your reality. What happened, happened. It was not a misunderstanding, it was a betrayal. Name it. Own it. Do not shrink from the truth just to preserve someone else's image. Second, relearn to listen to your body, its signals, its discomfort, its wisdom. If something feels off, it usually is. Third, create spaces, through journaling, therapy, solitude, where your truth is not only heard, but honored. Betrayal shakes the ground beneath you, but it can also serve as a reckoning. A sacred rupture that forces you to re-anchor your life, not on blind faith in others, but on deep clarity within yourself. In part 9, we will explore how to rebuild this clarity and how to re-enter relationships with open eyes, guarded hearts, and the strength to walk away before the next wound is inflicted. Rebuilding clarity after betrayal is not about becoming suspicious of everyone. It's about becoming deeply loyal to yourself. That kind of loyalty requires discernment, boundaries, and a radical commitment to truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable, especially when it is. Because clarity is not a gift others hand to you. It is a discipline you cultivate within. The first pillar of that discipline is pattern recognition. People will often show you who they are in patterns, not moments. Anyone can have a bad day, but repeated dismissals, consistent evasions, or chronic boundary violations are not accidents. They are data. And once you learn to track those patterns without emotional fog, you begin to see people clearly, not as you wish them to be, but as they are. The second pillar is emotional responsibility. You must own your emotional needs without outsourcing them to someone else. If you're looking for someone to rescue you, complete you, or validate your worth, you'll always be vulnerable to betrayal. Why? Because you'll ignore red flags in favor of comfort. Clarity means being able to sit in discomfort without retreating into fantasy. It means choosing truth over temporary relief. Third, build internal boundaries. We often talk about saying no to others, but what about saying no to the part of yourself that wants to believe a lie because it feels good? That part needs boundaries too. When someone shows you evidence of betrayal or manipulation, don't talk yourself out of it. Don't make excuses for them. That's not compassion. It's self-neglect. Clarity is saying to yourself, I will not abandon what I know just to keep someone close. Fourth, practice silence and observation. Betrayers and manipulators rely on speed, fast intimacy, fast trust, fast emotional escalation. Slow down, observe. Watch how they act when they don't get what they want. Watch how they handle conflict, criticism, or boundaries. Anyone can be kind when everything goes their way. Character is revealed in friction. Let time do what it does best. Expose truth. And finally, surround yourself with truth tellers, not cheerleaders, not enablers, but people who love you enough to challenge your illusions. Community can be your mirror, but only if it reflects honesty. Listen to those who gently say something's off when you're too close to see it. These voices are lifelines. You can live without betrayal, but you cannot live without clarity. And clarity, once gained, is your shield. It protects not only your heart, but your future. In part 10, we will turn our focus to the third and final archetype, the predator. Unlike the manipulator or betrayer, the predator does not deceive or pretend. He dominates. He thrives on fear. And understanding how to face him may be the key to reclaiming your power entirely. There are people who don't hide their intentions, who don't flatter or charm or lie. They don't seduce your trust or pretend to be allies. They dominate by presence alone. The predator does not ask for your loyalty. He expects your submission, and he gets it. Not because he is worthy of power, but because he creates fear so overwhelming that people stop resisting before the first strike is even made. The manipulator uses charm. The betrayer uses intimacy, but the predator uses force, psychological, emotional, sometimes physical. He does not need to be violent to be violent. His silence is often louder than shouting. His posture, his gaze, the way a room shifts when he enters. These are tools of power. His victory is not in the fight. It is in making you believe the fight is already lost. Predators thrive in environments where people have been conditioned to avoid conflict. Families, companies, communities that prize harmony over truth are fertile ground. In those places, strength is misinterpreted as threat, and fear becomes normalized. The predator is rarely challenged. He doesn't have to raise his voice. People silence themselves for him. That's how you know fear has taken root. But what gives a predator his true power isn't brute strength. It's the illusion of inevitability. He conditions you to believe that resistance is pointless, that confrontation will lead to punishment, and that your safest move is silence. And in that silence, he grows larger. Not because he's unstoppable, but because everyone around him believes he is. Consider the executive who rules a team through intimidation. His subordinates anticipate his moods, avoid upsetting him, and speak in cautious tones. Not because he's earned respect, but because he's taught them to fear the cost of dissent. Or the family member whose outbursts control every holiday, whose wrath has been tolerated for so long that his presence dictates everyone else's behavior. This is not authority, it's tyranny, and it survives only as long as the fear remains unchallenged. Here's the truth. A predator's greatest weapon is your belief in his power. But that belief can be broken. And when it breaks, so does his hold on you. In the next part, we'll explore how predators are created, why they choose fear over love, and how you can begin to dismantle their illusion. Not just with defiance, but with unshakable clarity. Because fear can paralyze, but it can also awaken. And once awakened, you can never be controlled the same way again. The predator is not born, he is made. Somewhere in his life, he learned that control was safer than connection. That domination ensured survival more reliably than vulnerability. He might have been raised in chaos, shaped by cruelty, or rewarded for ruthlessness. But whatever his origin, the conclusion was the same. To rule through fear is better than to risk being hurt. Understanding this does not mean excusing him. It means seeing him clearly. The predator fears weakness, not yours, but his own. So he projects strength like a fortress. He cannot afford tenderness, because to him, tenderness is liability. He cannot apologize because apology implies error. He cannot lose because loss would unmask the fragility he spent a lifetime hiding. His intimidation is not evidence of confidence. It is armor for a wounded core. But this armor creates distance. Real connection is impossible. Real joy out of reach. His victories are hollow because they are achieved through suppression, not partnership. And yet, people still fear him. Why? Because he understands something most people don't. Perception is power. He knows that if people believe he is untouchable, they will act accordingly. He doesn't need to shout. His reputation speaks for him. This is the cycle. Fear breeds silence. Silence breeds compliance, and compliance strengthens the predator's myth. And the only way to break this cycle is to confront the myth itself. That starts within. You cannot dismantle a predator's illusion until you confront your own fear of him. Not his power, your fear of it. Because fear is a mirror. It shows us what we believe we cannot survive. But the truth is, you can survive confrontation. You can survive disapproval. What you cannot survive is living small to appease someone else's shadow. Every time you hesitate to speak your truth, to hold your ground, to say no, you feed the predator's illusion. And every time you break that pattern, no matter how small the act, you weaken his hold. The shift does not happen all at once. It happens when you stop looking at him like a mountain and start seeing him as a man. Flawed, limited, breakable. This shift in perception is your first act of resistance. And once you see through the illusion, you will never be dominated the same way again. In part 12, we'll explore the anatomy of that resistance, how to confront power without becoming reactive, how to lead with grounded strength, and how to become the kind of person a predator cannot touch. Not because you fight harder, but because you refuse to play his game at all. To resist a predator is not to mirror him. It is to rise above his game entirely. He thrives on reaction. He provokes to see if you flinch, to test if you will fold. Your fear is his currency, your silence his reward. The moment you respond with emotional chaos, he knows he still controls the board. That's why resistance must be calm, deliberate, and rooted in inner clarity. Not fire, but stone. The first step in resisting the predator is presence. Not loudness, not defiance. Presence. This means you do not shrink in his presence, nor do you puff up to meet him. You hold your ground, physically and energetically. You breathe deeply. You speak slowly. You meet his gaze, not to challenge, but to signal. I see you and I will not disappear. This kind of strength is unsettling to a predator. He is used to people adapting, yielding, deferring. When you don't play that role, he becomes unsure. He cannot read you. He cannot predict your moves. And unpredictability in his world is weakness. He may escalate. He may test you harder, but that only proves the illusion is cracking. The second step is to set boundaries with precision, not apology. Don't justify your lines with long explanations. Predators use dialogue as distraction. Be clear. Be brief. I will not tolerate being spoken to that way. This conversation is over. If this continues, I will leave. These are not threats. They are statements of truth, and truth, calmly delivered, disrupts the predator's control. Third, understand that disengagement is not weakness. It is strategy. Not every confrontation must end in debate. Sometimes the most powerful move is to walk away with your dignity intact. Let him speak into silence. Let him rage into emptiness. The predator cannot feed on what you do not give. Your withdrawal of energy is your declaration of sovereignty. Finally, build inner allies. This resistance is not sustained by willpower alone. You need community, people who reflect your value, not your fear. You need practices that ground you, meditation, journaling, movement. You need a life that feels worth protecting. The stronger your internal world, the less impact the predator can have on your external one. In part 13, we will examine what happens after you break free, how to rebuild your life without fear, how to protect your energy from future predators, and how to lead others by example, not domination. Because the goal is not just survival, it is sovereignty, and sovereignty means you no longer serve fear in any form. Breaking free from a predator, a manipulator, or a betrayer is not the end. It is the beginning of your return to self. But in this beginning, there's a strange emptiness, a quiet space once filled by fear, confusion, or false connection. That emptiness can feel unsettling. Some even mistake it for loneliness. But do not rush to fill it. That space is sacred. It is the soil where sovereignty begins to grow. In the aftermath, you must resist the urge to replicate old patterns. Just because someone seems kinder, gentler, or more charming does not mean they are different. Familiar energy in a new body is still familiar. You are not looking for relief. You are building resilience. The people you invite into your life now must be tested not by how they make you feel in the beginning, but by how they act when your boundaries are firm. This is the first principle of life after freedom. Slow down. Predators rush, manipulators accelerate trust. Betrayers move in silence. You, however, can afford to wait. Let people earn your access. Let time do its work. Real connection is not urgent. It breathes, it evolves, and most importantly, it survives scrutiny. The second principle is energy protection. Your time, your attention, your emotional bandwidth, they are currency. Spend them wisely. Ask yourself regularly, does this person nourish me or deplete me? Do I feel seen or managed? Am I growing or shrinking in their presence? These questions are your compass. They will never lie to you. Third, establish rituals that restore your power. Not routines to numb you, but practices that return you to truth. Daily silence, creative expression, movement that reconnects you to your body. Conversations with people who don't just listen, but reflect your strength back to you. Your new life cannot be built on the wreckage alone. It must be constructed with intention, with bondai amuhanti abu joy, with clarity moroi. And finally, embody what you wished others had been for you. Be the safe space, the honest friend, the person who doesn't manipulate to get needs met. Lead not through fear, but through presence. Influence not through control, but through integrity. This is how you become immune, not to danger, but to deception, because your clarity will act as a shield. And those who operate in shadows will find no home in your light. In part 14, we will explore the inner transformation that follows true awakening, the deep psychological shift where fear no longer runs the show, and identity is no longer shaped by past pain. This is where you stop surviving and start choosing, not just how to live, but who to become. When fear no longer drives your choices, something profound begins to happen. You start living from truth, not reaction. This is the moment where survival ends and authorship begins. You are no longer just avoiding the manipulator, the betrayer, the predator. You are shaping a life built on clarity, courage, and conscious intention, and that changes everything. This inner transformation begins with identity. For so long, your sense of self may have been defined by the roles others gave you: the peacekeeper, the pleaser, the one who stays quiet to keep the peace. These roles once kept you safe, but now they limit you. And so you begin the brave work of letting them go, not with judgment, but with reverence. You thank them for the protection they offered. Then you release them. Next, you step into authorship. This means making decisions from desire, not just defense. You ask, what do I want to create? Who do I want to become? What kind of love, work, friendship, and freedom am I willing to build, even if it means standing alone for a while? These are not easy questions. They are sacred, and your answers become the architecture of your new life. You also begin to notice the shift in how you relate to others. You no longer chase approval. You no longer tolerate emotional games. Your energy becomes magnetic to those who value truth and repellent to those who feed on weakness. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. The more you embody integrity, the more the wrong people fall away and the right ones emerge. But perhaps the greatest transformation is this: you stop fearing your own power. For years, you may have dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel threatened. You made yourself small to avoid conflict. You swallowed your voice to keep the peace. But now you know the cost of silence is too high. You no longer fear being too much. You fear being less than who you are meant to be. In this space, healing is not just recovery, it is revelation. You see yourself not as broken, but as reborn, not as damaged, but as dangerous, to everything that once controlled you. In part 15, we will bring everything together. We'll reflect on the journey you've taken, the wisdom you've earned, and the final, most important question: what will you do with the power you now hold? This journey began with danger, the manipulator, the betrayer, the predator. It exposed the faces of harm not as strangers in the dark, but as familiar voices seated at your table. It peeled back the illusion that danger always announces itself, that evil wears a mask. You've seen now that the greatest threats often come with smiles, with promises, with quiet expectations. And the greatest defense is not suspicion, but self-knowledge. You now understand that power is not taken from you. It is given away. Every time you said yes when you meant no, every time you silenced your voice to keep the peace, every time you ignored the whisper of intuition that said, something's not right. But now you are different. Now you recognize the patterns. You speak with precision. You choose with clarity. And most of all, you no longer fear being alone with the truth. You've walked through manipulation and come out discerning. You've survived betrayal and emerged anchored. You've faced the predator and found your strength not in violence, but in stillness. That kind of power, the quiet, unshakable kind, cannot be faked. It is earned, and now it's yours. But power is a responsibility. What will you do with it? Will you protect those who haven't yet awakened? Will you teach others how to set boundaries, how to see clearly, how to reclaim what was taken? Will you lead not by domination, but by presence? The world does not need more rulers. It needs more guardians of truth, more builders of trust, more warriors of discernment. There will still be manipulators, still betrayers, still predators. But now they will not find you soft, blind, or afraid. They will find you prepared. And preparation is liberation. You do not need to fear what you can name. You do not need to flee what you understand. You only need to remain rooted in yourself. Because the most powerful person in any room is the one who does not need to control it. If this message resonated with you, if it sparked something in your heart, or clarified a truth you have long felt but never named, then don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it, pass it on. And if you're ready to step fully into this journey, here's what to do next. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments, "I will not be deceived." Let the world see how many of us are ready to rise, not with vengeance, but with vision. Because the true victory is not that you've seen the enemy, it's that you've seen yourself.